Hey, it's Jason here with Grow Morristown. This is Morristown, Tennessee's backyard gardening program. And this past week, we handed out a lot of supplies to our gardeners. And we're getting a lot of questions. And what I'm going to send you is along with all of your equipment, there's also a couple of fertilizers and a couple of pest and disease control products. Some are dry, some are wet. I'm going to give you all of these product labels for all of this, and you're going to look at these product labels and they're all going to tell you how to mix it differently. So it's important to, right off the bat, we're going to talk a little bit about the difference between per foot calculations versus a square foot per square foot calculation, or even if it says per acre. We're still talking about square feet. There's a certain number of square feet in an acre, 40,000+ square feet in an acre. So let's take a look at it. Here's sharing my screen. Here's a dry fertilizer. It says 35 pounds per 1,000 square feet. Well, the kind of gardening we're doing, that's not really helpful. We have to have a way of breaking that down. This is your fish emulsion liquid fertilizer, 3 gallons per acre. Well, we got to figure out what that means for you if you're only growing 10 feet of this or that or whatever. This is a dry pest control for slugs mostly, and it says 1/2 to 1 pound per 1,000 square feet. It breaks it down into 1/2 to 1 teaspoon per square yard. So it's totally different. This one's pretty cool. It's got 2 to 4 ounces per gallon. Pretty useful for our level of gardening. This one's pretty useful too. It gives you a pint, a quart, and per gallon mix rate. So the difference between per row or per square foot, you think about it kind of like this. It doesn't, so let's say that this is 100 feet long. Now, whether this is 4 foot wide, 2 feet wide, 3 feet wide, or whatever, think about what you're planting. If you're going to plant straight, like say this is corn, straight down the middle of the row. Well, if you're fertilizing way out here, you're just fertilizing weeds. You're not fertilizing the plant. So think about it like this. If you figure 1 foot wide times 100 feet, well, that's 100 square feet. Say something in the case of corn, that's a heavy feeder, figure 2, maybe 3 feet wide times 100 feet. Well, now we're talking about 200 square feet. So you see, this is how you can do the math backwards from whether it's an acre or 1,000 square feet or whatever. You can break that down into a smaller, more useful increment for you. And I've done some of this math on each of these products, and that will be on the sheets that I send you. So when we're looking at maybe a 4 foot wide row and you're going straight down the middle, just remember you don't have to fertilize all 400 square feet of that area, because 4 foot wide by 100 would be 400 square feet, which we see in this example. Let's say if this were spinach, which is planted in double rows, so every 6 inches all the way across the row, all the way down. Well, now we really are looking at fertilizing 400 square feet. So even at 100 foot long on a 4 foot wide square foot, we're only 400 square feet. So you can see how when you're just mixing a couple of ounces of each of these products in a gallon, let's say, a lot of what I gave you is going to last a long time. It's going to cover a lot of area. A lot of products talk about repeat applications. They'll call that side dressing. So if this here in blue is your main crop, say this is your corn straight down, you're going to come back 4 to 6 weeks later and apply more fertilizer. Well, You don't necessarily have to go around every single plant. You could just fertilize straight down each side. Come 6 inches off the plant, you're going to put your fertilizer straight down each side. So let's talk about some specifics. Let's start with the 50-pound bag of Harmony that you got. This 543 represents how much, well, it's right here, nitrogen, phosphate, and potassium or potash. This also has calcium in it as well. Calcium, important for a lot of things, but I think tomatoes as well. Where was I at? Okay, so 1.5 cups per 10 feet. So we can do the math up on that and get 15 cups for a 100-foot row, 7.5 cups for a 50-foot row, or approximately 1 or 2 tablespoons per plant. You can put 1 or 2 tablespoons in the hole as you're planting the plant or the seeds. Stir it in a little bit before you put your, mix it in a little bit before you put your seeds in top dressing or whatever. And this says reapply as needed at half the rate 4 to 6 weeks after planting. Pretty common with fertilizers, very common with fertilizers to come back a few weeks later and reapply at half the rate. So whether you start with this dry, or the next thing is the brown fish emulsion or the liquid, think you're going to apply when you plant, and then you're going to reapply 4 to 6 weeks later, not as much as you would the first time, half the rate. So whether you start with the fish emulsion and then switch over to the dry later on, or you start with dry and switch over to the fish emulsion or whatever, you can use these interchangeably. But this is a fertilizer just like the dry, so don't do both at the same time. There is such a thing as too much of a good thing. Now this says 3 gallons per acre, dilute at least 25 to 1. Shouldn't be a problem with that, because 25 to 1 on a gallon would be a lot of ounces in a gallon to exceed the 25 to 1. You can see 200 square foot, you're looking at less than an ounce per gallon of this stuff. So this jug that I gave you of this is really going to go a long way. Maybe even more than that 50-pound bag. You wouldn't know it to look at the jug, but there's a lot in there. You don't want to mix it until you're going to use it. So only mix what you need. And so that's why it's important to do some of the math ahead of time. So if we were going to do, say, corn, 100-foot row of corn, this is how much we're looking at full strength. It's not a lot, a little over a tablespoon in an entire gallon. If you're doing a 50-foot row of tomatoes, say 2 feet wide by 50 feet would be 100 square feet. You're looking at even less. I mean, just over half a tablespoon in an entire gallon. And this stuff really works. But what I gave you is going to last a long time. And if you store it correctly with a tight lid, maybe not in your hot garage, but in a cool place, it will last quite a while. So that's that one. So now we're going to move into the insect and pest control. Let's take a look at the Sluggo first. This is iron phosphate and spinosad. Everyone I know pronounces it spinosad, spinosad. I don't know how you say it. But what this is a certain type of bacteria that's fermented, and they get this ferment juice off the bacteria, and it kills a lot of bugs and insects on contact. It's not necessarily, it's considered low toxicity to humans and pets, but it can irritate your skin. It works on contact, and so it can irritate your skin. So you should read through these products and take responsibility for yourself for reading through these products and see and store them correctly, keep them away from your kids, all that good stuff. You gotta do it. It is organic, but there are risks. Anything that'll kill insects and bugs, can cause problems in all living things. Anything that'll kill a plant, probably don't want to eat it, right? So it's not enough to just say use common sense. You should read this stuff. All right, back to this, how to put it on. You're going to sprinkle this evenly. It doesn't have to be in large piles, although people will use this. It's a granular product to kind of go around the entire perimeter of your garden area, or whatever crops are particularly susceptible to slugs. For example, cabbage is I'm having a problem with slugs eating up my cabbage right now. So I've been seeing some signs, but I caught them red-handed yesterday. Anyway, we're looking at half to 1 pound per 1,000 square feet. But it does give you a half to 1 teaspoon per square yard. So that's 9 square feet. So you can kind of figure out how much you need for that. It's not as much as you think. So it's not like you're seeing, it's not like chalk in a baseball field. That's not what we're talking about. It does need to be scattered evenly on wet soil. Let's see, moving on. The Serenade disease spray. Let's go back. This is a bacterial spray. And this we're talking about fungus and molds. Let's see here, think about blight on your tomatoes, rust on your beans, powdery mildew and molds on tomatoes, squash, this kind of stuff, okay? Now, this mixes at a rate of 2 to 4 ounces per gallon. You're gonna you're gonna shake the bottle well before you mix it in the water. So you need the concentrate to be mixed thoroughly, and then you need to mix it thoroughly in the water. And you're gonna spray this till the plant is soaked, top and bottom of the leaves, and then of course let it dry. Is it best to spray morning, night? I don't know. The experts have been arguing about this forever, I think. And some say it doesn't matter. They'll say if you spray in bright sunlight, it'll burn your plants. And other people say hogwash on that. So I don't know. Do what your grandma tells you to do, is all I can say on that. She's right, she's wrong. Some other grandma will say something else, and she's right, but she's wrong too. So you have to figure those things out on your own. You can ask me, but I'm just going to tell you, I don't know. All right. So 1/2 ounce to 1 ounce per quart of water. Again, only mix what you need of this. This is rain fast, so you're going to watch the weather. You don't want to spray, the evening before monsoon rains coming tomorrow. So it can be a little tricky with these things that are rain fast, and watching the weather reports and deciding, okay, well, here's a good window of opportunity. I'm going to spray after it rains. It's going to be dry for 4 days, and so there's some timing and some trial and error involved in learning how to use these things. Says for best results, treat before the disease develops or at first sign, or also when environmental conditions favor rapid disease development. And that's when, you're getting every afternoon it's raining and the humidity is just sky high. it's known to cause problems in tomatoes. So maybe you just want to spray um, um, whether you have problems or not. You want to spray in a preventative way instead of in a treatment kind of way. Also, with something like tomatoes, that's where some of that spacing comes in handy, because even if it is raining a little bit every afternoon, if your tomatoes are really crowded, they're going to stay wetter longer. If they're spaced out appropriately and they get lots of airflow, they're going to dry out faster and have less of these problems too. So you need to think about things in that way as well, how to prevent a lot of fungus on your tomato plants is not to overcrowd them. You can overcrowd them and just fertilize more. You can get away with that, but you're setting yourself up for more problems as far as diseases. Now we move on to Monterey Garden Insect Spray. Now this is the spinosad, and again, it's that fermented bacteria that works on contact. It contacts the insect skin and kills them that way. Mix thoroughly. Once again, you want to mix the concentrate thoroughly, and then of course when you dilute it, you got to mix that thoroughly. Only mix as much as you need. And they've got a pretty useful chart here, a pint, quart, gallon, how much to use. Again, you're going to soak the whole thing, top, bottom. You're going to soak the whole plant to use this. It's rain fast, like Serenade, so there's timing issues with the weather on that as well. I've used this stuff a lot with pretty good results. I'm trying to think of what to tell you on this. This does, see, oh yeah. Here we've got specific information for specific crops and insects. So you can dig further if you're having a specific problem. This chart can be a good idea to look at, well, what are the potential culprits here? This would be a good place to start. I'm having trouble with some cole crops right now, and so this is a perfect place to start when I'm thinking, well, what could it be? This is a great place to start. So anyway, that's it in a nutshell. I'm sure I didn't cover everything. Hopefully I covered it well enough that you have a basic understanding, but I'm here for questions, so ask questions. And some of this information does overlap with our next workshop, but redundancy might bore people, but it doesn't hurt anybody, right? So ask your questions. We'll be talking more about it later, but feel free to go ahead and ask questions. And I guess that's it. Till next time. Thanks.